Welcome to Comics League Dark. I'm
What?
Jared. I'm here with JJheat Plays. What's up, brother?
Flame on. How's everybody doing tonight?
Teladia Plays is back. What's up, man?
Hey, what's up? By the way, was that delayed for any of you guys? Because it was
Nope,
for me.
it wasn't
Just
for me.
briefly for me, I'm gonna
It,
be
it
honest.
wasn't for me. I
Briefly.
wish I could repeat the Lois Lane part for our boy Robert here. What's up, brother?
Read between the
Giving me
lines.
3 fingers. Oh my
No,
God.
I'm saying read between the lines.
I know. So today we're going to talk about the Superman sneak peek, Emma Frost being in Marvel Rivals, aka My Dream Come True, and Marvel's apparent war on the fans. So you guys want to start with Soups?
Yep.
Yeah, let's get out the way.
All right.
Get out of the
So,
way, and
so we got the first 5 minutes of Superman, and okay, there were parts that I liked, and there were parts I had issues with. Let's start with what I liked. Fortress of Solitude looks great. The robots look great. Special effects for like Crypto look pretty good. And
some of the ideas I thought were real in the Fortress were really good.
Yeah, because again, this is in keeping with what Gunn said about how he's really like weighing in on the fantastical portions of Superman. And I'm like, yeah, you could clearly see it with like the robots and such, and the inside the fortress and everything. I'm like, well done.
I like the personalities.
There's only one part I didn't like besides the suit, but I've made my point on the suit.
That's due to rights issues.
Yeah, but it's the fact. So Superman's injured. Crypto starts jumping on him like a dog would to its owner. I understand that, but the joke goes on for way too long, and then Superman has a really cartoonish scream at the end.
Yeah, I say it was a little too long. Yeah.
Yeah,
that's a smidge.
Besides that, I also liked when they go to the fortress's door and Crypto barks. The S-Shield shows up on the door. I'm like, oh, okay, that's dope.
And it recognizes Crypto.
Yeah, okay, I like that one. So let's start with JJheat. What do you think, JJheat?
Me personally, I was a dog owner at one point in time. My dog sadly passed away a couple years ago.
Sorry, bro.
But even still, I still have fond memories of him. But even from that standpoint, it goes on too long. I get it. Crypto's cute. It's a dog, man's best friend. Hopefully the editing is fixed in post, but some of these cuts go on way too long from a structure standpoint.
A little too long. I agree with that.
Yeah, exactly. They need to cut down a few things.
Not to mention this could easily. Now, granted, if you want to go retro and tie back the Donner's films for the sake of contrast with Snyder, fine, perfectly understandable. But if you lean too much into it, you're going to run into the same problem Superman Returns 06 did.
Yep, but to be fair, that one just had like a plot that you're like, who is this for?
No, but again, that was the heavily like thing I was trying to reference, and I get what JJheat is saying, and he's right, because it's because like I understand that like you do want to homage that because it's a significant part of the character's history, but the problem is you can't go too far into it, and that's my concern with the movie. I feel, at least from what I've seen so far. Now again, this could just be for the marketing, because the fact that they even use the theme in every trailer or like a variation of it, I'm like, at a certain point, I understand Chris Reeves was like a definitive Superman for a lot of people, but eventually we have to move on from that.
That's fair.
That's just my perspective. How about you, Teladia?
I mean, for me, I enjoyed the 5-minute clip. Right, I enjoyed the way that David Cornswell was portrayed in that little clip, and Crypto, yeah, he went a little bit overboard with the jumping and jumping and pulling his leg and pulling his arm. Like that's a little bit overboard, but other than that, it was fine. Very, very nods to the All-Star Superman comic that I liked. I also liked the fact that the solar radiation onto Superman's body reminded me. You remember the All-Star Superman movie where they use the solar. I think it was solar radiation to try to heal the two Kryptonians. I can't remember
Yep.
their name.
Oh, I know you're talking about Barvor or something, or
Yeah.
I don't remember the woman's name.
Yeah, so it reminded me a little bit of that
And
scene.
I know some people on the internet were like upset that like Superman got so beat up, and I'm like, that happens before.
That's happened so many times.
Because here's the thing. This is kind of like the Timverse when they weaken Superman slightly to add stakes. So I'm like, okay, fine. It's even Cavill got really beat up. I'm sure, because here's the thing. This is the first time we actually heard like the internal damage that Superman sustained. So
Yeah, exactly.
And in terms of like the sun hurting him, depending on,
It's the healing.
To a degree, again, a lot of the stuff is stuff that we haven't necessarily seen before. So I see why people think that doesn't happen with Superman, or it hasn't been like emphasized. So again, I get it. But again, there are times where that happens. In fact, that was Batman's contingency plan to take out Superman Tower Babel, make his skin clear so he'd be bombarded by the sun.
Yeah.
So it happens.
But mind you,
go ahead.
I was going to say, but mind you that internal thing, like when they mentioned, oh, he's got internal rupture, internal fractured thing, bones and whatnot.
Yeah,
it made me think that who actually did beat Superman to the pulp?
Probably the clone.
Yeah, I think that that depending on where that is in the movie, it could actually be, if that's the beginning of the movie, it could be a thing where like we're like what when he's screaming, it kind of goes 2 days previously, and then or if it's the kaiju, or if it's even like a different villain. What do you want to say, JJheat?
These are my two predictions. This, because we already know from a structure standpoint, this is going to be a combination of All-Star, Solaris, All-Star, Solaris, maybe Superman versus the Elite,
and All-Star, and for all seasons.
Thank you for all season. Thank you. So it's already those four main storylines are going to be an inspiration for this movie. We all know that. So in terms of the Ultraman, the secondary villain, or the muscle of Luthor scheme, it's either going to be one or two scenarios. It's either going to be clone Superman from Doomsday 07, which was basically just a higher-ups maneuvering from a right issue due to legalities at the time, or it's outright going to be Bizarro. My money's on Bizarro because nobody wants to be reminded of Superman 07.
Yep, or Ultramarine Corps. I think that's more of the name we're going to go with, is the Ultra Corps.
I mean, James Gunn, I could see him doing that, but that's a little too campy and too big of a deep cut. If this was 10 or 15 years ago, casual audiences might get the reference.
I'm just saying the name. You're using the name. It's still going to be Bizarro, but it's going to probably be like Ultramarine or something.
Okay.
So what about you, Robert?
Everything they've been saying, I really enjoyed it. I do agree that the crypto jumping went a tad too long, just a tad. Even I'm like, move on. But yeah, I really liked everything. I thought the fortress looked amazing. I like how it raises questions, and I also like some of the little additions in the trailer.
Yeah. Oh, and by the way, I found a good tweet to explain the sun thing. The sun, people are confused. The sun is not what's hurting him. It's his bones literally mending at fast. That's what's hurting him. But anyway, yeah, I enjoyed that.
And Mac, that is not bad writing. I think, didn't they also say that other robot is new, or Robot 2 is new or something?
12 is
12.
New.
Robot 12 is new. So she's not that emotionless. So I think that's the joke of like, we're emotionless. That's not bad writing. That's a joke.
But as for like, yes, so the answer's up. If you notice, they also add in tentacles on the Solaris monster, because I don't think that was in the first trailer.
No.
And they also added what I assume is Green Lantern fighting it, which I'm like, okay. Again, it gets into, why are you sitting on your ass while they are fighting? But we'll see the context of that later. So again, that's a situation where you have to wait for the context. But Besides that, I liked, like this way, I'm about 85% saying that I enjoyed this this preview. I'll give it that. The 15% is the suit and crypto.
Right.
But yeah, so I mean, in terms of how well I think that this movie will do, and JJheat and I were talking about this before we went live, we think it's going to be just up to Man of Steel or a little less. Is that accurate, JJheat?
I would say so, 575 to 600 million. I do not see this hitting Man of Steel numbers. At least once you factor the opening weekend and maybe the second week, because after that, that is relatively the peak from a consumer standpoint, because you are inevitably going to get a drop off from diminishing returns.
Yeah, exactly.
Best case scenario, I could see slightly above Men of Steel, but that is a best case scenario.
But that would still be a hit for them, if you ask me.
No. From our perspective, yes, but from WB's perspective, because here's the thing. Because remember, Man of Steel was, Batman versus Superman was extremely monetary successful for them, but they still consider it a failure because it didn't make $1 billion. And I feel like with the way that Zaslav and Gunn have been hyping up, more Zaslav has been hyping up this movie, I feel like he's telling the shareholders that this is going to make $1 billion.
Even though that's not what they agreed upon when they started the whole thing.
No, it's not. But that's that's for the most part what it looks like. And is that fair to Gunn? No, I don't think so at all. But that's just the way it is. And if it doesn't make that standard, they could just say it didn't do well. Hey, what's up, Bell Rev? How you doing? So that's where I think it's kind of going to be. Again, I don't think it's going to make $1 billion because no Superman movie has done well enough to make $1 billion. Could I be wrong? Yes. It's not often that I am wrong, so we're just going to go with that. And the Lord of Comics, so that does help. But I feel like yeah, I would say Britt and I have said on our show that we think it's going to make, in that window too. Cameron says this movie has to succeed because if it doesn't, Warner Brothers better start looking for a new universe. What they'll do is if this movie doesn't do well, they'll cut back on what is brought in, on what is announced. And then they'll just we'll probably only get Batman movies, but let's be honest. And they'll be like, I feel like what they'll do is they'll take the movies and TV shows and say, just have them be separate things until we figure out something to do. What do you?
I personally feel that if it does at least moderately well, as in it does
700 million plus
thereabouts, I think that'll still be enough that they'll at least. They might roll back some things, but it's not going to be a damage control levels.
That's fair.
I can say that. It's just the issue with that is that this is Zaslav, the man that canceled the Batgirl movie that was already done. There's no telling what this man's going to do.
Yeah, but we also don't know what the actual quality of that movie really was or not.
At least
but regardless, he canceled it when it was literally 99% done, and
go on. Considering that we're Hamada in the DC Civil War, chances are that Batgirl movie was either going to be a modern day Batman Beyond, basically present, or just hot garbage.
Just drop it on streaming. But Brit says, and what's up? By the way, so I'm going to play Brit's intro. Where is it? Yes.
He's back.
It says they want a Justice League team-up movie so that they would scrap the C-lister pet projects and then do jail and other teams.
That's a safe compromise.
That might be a safe compromise, but I don't know.
What they'll do is if this fails, what they'll do is they'll tell Gunn, okay, you can proceed, but get rid of the Robin puppet show and all that other BS. You're only doing movies based on the actual Justice League members, which are Batman, I think that if this movie fails, by the way, Zaslav is going to be very much more hands-on with the DC.
Probably.
Like
Probably.
Gunn will lose his supposed autonomy.
Yeah, Zaslav. I hate to cut you off earlier, Jared. I'm gonna go ahead.
No, it's all good, bro.
But Zaslav is a notorious cheapskate. I mean, the fact that the shows he's taken off HBO Max alone is proof of how cutthroat he is from a monetary standpoint. I feel for the man. He got finessed by Warner,
AT&T.
AT&T. Thank you, by AT&T and that whole thing. I feel for him from a business standpoint. I do.
Guy has been bringing a bit more of a profit. At least they've dropped a lot. They paid off a lot of the debt.
They did. The merger did do that. But at the end of the day, you hadn't had any built-up returns. You had the DCU pretty much implode within the span of 5 years, or the soft reboot they tried to do with Hamada, but that's a separate conversation. Then the Young Justice revival did do nowhere near the numbers viewership-wise on streaming that X-Men 97 did. That's a video idea worth itself, so cheap plug there.
There you go.
But it's just ever since Zaslav took over, he has not had a commercial win. The closest you could say he's had was when he begrudgingly had to make Looney Tunes blow up the world, when that ended up getting released.
I think Barbie.
And maybe Barbie, depending if the merger was already in effect by the time that movie wrapped up production.
Yeah.
Other than Barbie, and would Oppenheimer be included, or is that another studio?
That was another studio.
Okay,
Because remember, you're not having just blanked on his name. Nolan doesn't work for Warner Brothers now.
Oh yeah, they had a nasty falling out a couple years back. Thank you for reminding me. But yeah, other than Barbie and a couple of mid-tier content, Zaslav's DC Warner Brothers has not had a commercial win. Even Creature Commandos would be, smut aside, relatively mid. And I am saying this purely from a consumer standpoint.
Yeah, so they need a win. They do need a win.
Yeah, but Britt says that the scene of Superman on his ass while the Justice Gang fights Solaris is not what it seems. There are a lot of gags in this movie. Just saying. Oh, we'll see. But Cameron asked a good question. Do you guys think a new DCAU could be profitable today, or was it a one-time lightning in a bottle moment?
Ooh, okay.
Here's what I say. They need a vision.
Yeah. And they need to stick to that vision. It can't be like it was with the DC AMU, where it's like, okay, we're going in one direction, and all of a sudden, off at the knees, death of Superman.
A lot of that was due to the New 52 imploding, and a lot of that universe was
No, I get that. But if you have a plan, you have to stick to it. You have to stick to the story that you set up.
So I was going to bring this up, right? I don't know if...
Go ahead, Teladia.
Yeah, go ahead.
Right.
I don't think Superman will be a lot of gags. I think it's going to be self-contained.
Okay.
I really think.
What do you mean by self-contained versus
limited,
having a lot of gags?
Like limited. So like it's not going to be like in terms of the humor side of it. Yeah, it's not going to be like, gag here and gag there and gag everywhere. It's not going to be like that. It's going to be
kind of like the more serious stuff of Guardian 3 kind of thing, where there was more serious with some levity here and there.
Yeah,
we'll see.
That's what I think personally. I know people might disagree with me. You're entitled to your opinion. I ain't gonna put that against you. You're welcome to your opinion, but that's my take on it.
Yeah,
and honestly, that's what I truly believe. And I mean, people have asked me, am I still going to see it? Yes, I'm still going to go see the movie, regardless, because some people have said to me, but you're just a dude that's, I think I'm a DC fan first and foremost, guys, before a Snyder fan. I'm a DC fan first and foremost.
Same.
First and foremost, and I put Superman in high regard. So obviously, I do want to check this out, and I do want to think. I think we should give it a chance and not just say, "Oh, I'm not going to give it a chance."
But here's the balance on that, Teladia. Yes, you can give it a chance, but the thing is, giving a chance. There are too many people on Twitter that like conflate like having saying you're going to give it a chance, but airing concerns with being a Snyder cultist.
Okay,
on the internet, you are not allowed to have any concerns about this movie. Period.
Well, don't just. Sorry, go ahead. You go first.
No, go ahead.
Sorry, just right quick, gentlemen. Just right quick. Let's go ahead and drop that now. First of all, after a 7-year campaign, you got the Snyder Cut. And before that, Snyder already had to abandon the original project after a devastating tragedy. So at least from that standpoint, we are the champion. There's already a win there. We at least saw an aspect of Snyder's original vision come to life. Mm-hmm. So that really should be the end of it right then and there. Would it be possible to get an Elseworld project, something exclusive with a Netflix deal? Possibly. Snyder's open to the idea, but it's unlikely to happen. But at least we got some resolution in some way if you're just going to go off the Snyder Cut and then go into a new direction from there. I do not...
Unintended.
Thank you. I do not condone bullying or anything of excess, at least me as an individual.
Yeah, and if someone attacks you for like having concerns, just mute and move on. That's what I always tell people. Do not engage with these people because the toxic people on both sides, they just want attention. If you deprive them of that, then they become less relevant. That's why I say, while I am interested in the Superman movie, and Nick and I have talked about this many times, that we want this movie to do well. Because here's the thing. If this movie does well, guess what? This also makes it more likely that they could invest more into Elseworld stuff, leading to the Snyderverse. So, and here's the thing. I've seen it way too many times where WB, where a universe fails, and then WB learns the wrong lessons because they'll think the DC brand is just weak. We can't do this in movies.
Yeah,
that's what they'll think. And I'm sorry,
just focus on Batman. Just focus on Batman.
The narrative that if this fails, they'll go back to the Snyderverse is objectively false.
Yep, and again, acting like you're just gonna have Cavill and Zach just waltz back in with like yay and Gunn being booted out.
Who openly admitted they were very disgruntled about the whole thing, especially when Whedon came in. But back to Cameron Bailey's original comment.
Yeah.
You had already had a second DCAU with Young Justice with the animated series, with the world building and Super Spy and Subterfuge. But because of diminishing toy sales, they scrapped it off original syndication back in 2012, 2013, I want to say.
Yep.
With season 2. Mm-hmm. And then you had a second chance with the revival, but season 3 was relatively lackluster, which all that turned into is just a Judas Contract adaptation, just with a subversion at the end with Brion going rogue instead of Tara, which outside of Brion having a bad temper was barely set up at all. And then season 4 was an attempt to return to form, but ultimately it was just nostalgia baiting outside of a time-traveling mystery with Lor-Zod's body being confused for Connor Kent's, even though DNA exists. And there were remains.
Mm-hmm.
I was like, Teladia had
internet
issues, but it's all good.
Even with the time travel stuff and the reveals, Phantoms does not work on a rewatch. It is a structured mess.
Yeah, it looks like they were just throwing stuff at the wall and hoping it'll stick so they can get another season. Phantoms was there begging for another season.
I would argue it was a bad case of playing chicken, but hey, that's what Legends of Tomorrow is for.
Yeah. Cameron says, and it ended off on a cliffhanger to Dark Side War. It's basically that. Yeah, you're good. But it ended on that. I think is the meanest thing because you didn't know if they were going to give you another season. You should have capped off that story and not set up the other thing.
I mean, but at the same time, though, that's what Weissman always does. He did that with Gargoyles too.
Yeah, it doesn't make it right.
Or at the very least, compromise. Hey, if you don't give us another season, let's pull a Teen Titans in Tokyo and do an epilogue movie.
Yeah. That's what they could do, but it's like, there you go. But anyway, essentially, so the way I kind of see this is like, again, it's a little too far away to be sounding the alarm bells. Again, we'll know more when the movie comes out in July. That's the main thing.
And as far as we know,
it could do very well. And you know what? If it does really well and I like it, I will be very vocal about if it's good or not. If it's good, I will do a video saying I am so happy.
Like I said, it has steep competition, though.
Yeah, that's the other thing. It's launching in between two major franchises.
And again, I don't blame Gunn for that either. That's a case where like they had the perfect thing, and then the others decided we're gonna put it right there to compete.
Yeah, exactly. It's not. This was not a Gunn thing on that. But anyway, so that's where I think I'm going to leave this topic. So let's move on. So you guys want to talk about Marvel's War or Emma Frost?
Emma Frost.
Marvel's War
on the fans.
Yeah, I say we do that because I say we do that next.
Yeah, that's
War
fair.
on fans. Okay, so I'm sure you guys have noticed, and Daniel, it wasn't a total disrespect to just calm the F down, people. All right. So Marvel's War on Fans. So what I like about the thing about Marvel and their business strategy is, see, the reason why Marvel blasts its fans so much is because, as Robert and I have said many times on our show, it's because Marvel has that certain like status in the industry that it's like they feel untouchable because they are like the top like publisher. The problem is that with prices increasing and like tariffs and all that other BS, people are going to be a lot more like, what's the word? Careful on how they spend their money. And this applies to Superman as well. So you can't afford to alienate people. And Brevoort has made a career of alienating the fan base.
Yep. Unfortunately, up until now, we've had the Marvel zombies who buy red even if the book is dead.
Yeah, that's the problem. And that's why.
And they know it. They're like, yeah, people are going to buy it. Let us trash everyone because they'll still be like, thank you, sir. May I have another? Thank you, sir. May I have another?
Here's my other cheek. But essentially, it's Marvel district. Again, this is why I love DC. Say what you will about DC. I'm not calling DC saints because they're not.
They're not.
Marvel, DC, to the degree Marvel does, has never pulled this stuff.
Probably a few pod shots.
Not even during Rebirth, really.
Yeah, again, the worst I've ever seen of that was a Harley Quinn issue that was clearly pot shots at CG, but you have to be a CG person to get it.
And if you notice, whenever whenever a creator for DC does that, they literally DC self-corrects a lot more than Marvel does.
Exactly.
All different.
Yeah, exactly. DC self-corrects more than Marvel does because DC admits when they're wrong. So I'm like, oh, okay. Even when they went to Rebirth, they said, hey, we made some mistakes with the new 52. And you know what? I respect that.
And hey, let's look at Jason Aaron's potshot issues.
Yeah.
Well, first of all, you have during Thor, he would have Thor's grandfather completely just start spouting out mean-spirited, like misogynistic stuff at Jane. Also, you had Absorbing Man basically saying, "Oh, you're not the real Thor," and then of course his wife Titania said, "You get a girl boss pass so I'll turn myself in because you're a woman."
Yeah.
Was that really a pod shot though, or just overindulgence?
No. He quoted a lot of the online Discord stuff.
Okay.
It's kind of like in the She-Hulk show.
Yep.
Where they were homaging that. I'm like, that's not what you want to.
Oh yeah, She-Hulk. She-Hulk's issue was the worst because that whole entire thing was trying to justify everything. And JJheat, get this. You want to know how bad it was? He basically had Jen say there was a point where Bruce, now remember Bruce, who had an abusive father, who beat him and killed his mother in front of him. Remember that. When Bruce said, I envy you because you are the most approachable. And she said, believe it or not, being catcalled was worse. She'd rather be a monster than be catcalled. This from the woman who during Dan Slott's run was so promiscuous that when it was asked to do a list of all the people she slept with as She-Hulk compared to all the people she slept with as Jen. Jen was like 5 people. She-Hulk, list. And yet, everything in here was done to say, you are a stupid. This is how Jen is going to be.
Yeah, exactly. And I'm like, or it's like, again, the other thing I didn't like about Aaron is when he straight up tried to change Thor lore and say, oh, Thor is a mantle. And I'm like, it's some guy's name.
If you want to make Thor unworthy for a bit, to take him down to Earth.
Yeah,
that's fine. That's been done. It's been done.
The arrogance of the Pantheon, that's all well and good. Heck, even God of War has done it at least once, technically twice.
But that's like saying...
But the reasons why Gore was right.
Robert, it's like you took my glasses, and now all of a sudden you are Jared.
Why, thank you.
Lois Lane sucks. Lois Lane fucking sucks.
It's okay. Well, guess what? Now I know what your intro is. Clip that. He said Lois Lane sucks. Clip it.
Yeah, but then the F-bomb's going to cover you completely.
No. You said it right the first time.
We're going to edit that.
Please don't.
I'm only kidding. Let's not forget when Marvel, for some reason, made... Yeah, remember this, JJheat, your favorite Marvel story.
Hail Hydra.
Actually, my favorite Marvel story is X-Men versus Avengers.
Isn't that awesome? I love that story. I love all the memes that started where like Spider-Man's like, screw responsibility. Deadpool's like, I hate chimichangas. And I'm like, yeah, exactly on that. Because here's the thing. That book came out at the very wrong time, which was 2016, when you already have a politically charged like world. And then you release a book where the face of America is a Nazi.
No, I would say this. One thing I will still give prop with Secret Empire, it was one of the few Marvel events that actually had proper build-up.
True.
I'll give you that.
True. I'll give you that.
Because think about it, how many other ones they just dive in, boom, event happens, and it just happens. And rarely, they used to do build-up to these events. They haven't done that in years. But that was one of the rare ones where they did actually have a proper build-up.
I feel like Secret Empire is basically Marvel's Armageddon 2001. They had this big build-up, they had this big gravitas, but the ending got leaked, and they had to restructure the entire third act.
I don't think so. I think they basically decided to have it be, oh, wait, we need to give Sam the focus. We got to shoehorn it in.
Yeah, but they had said earlier that it's not like another Captain America is going to show up and punch the bad guy.
He's saying that because he didn't want to give away the ending, dude. I think that's kind of obvious.
It's not, but okay. But, yeah, but see, that's another thing. But I think the Marvel's war on fans is no more evident.
Yeah.
Than it is on the Spider-Man.
Paul.
We'll start with Paul. All right. So, what did Marvel do this time? I love Zeke. No, Zeke, we're just talking about actually, they made MJ Venom. That's what they did.
And they just made her, after making her Jackpot.
Yeah.
Wait, that was real? I thought it was a Ben 10 parody.
No.
No. Jackpot's been real. And remember,
thank God I left Marvel Comics.
I remember this, JJheat. This is not the first time they tried to tease her as Jackpot. But then they chickened out and gave it to some original character.
Yeah.
Don't you remember that way back during Brand New Day when they did that free comic book day comic? And for some reason,
here's the thing.
He called him Tiger.
So anyway, so then you get to, so with this, the problem with Paul is that it represents, because here's the problem with what Marvel's doing with this, is that they know the fan base hates him, but then they try and rub the fan base's face in it, like when they go face front true Paul Evers.
Yep.
And I'm like, no.
And then, again, I'm positive this stuff is forced on Al Ewing. I'm positive this was something he was forced to do, because this derails his entire story. Everything about the story has been derailed.
Editorial mandate gone bad at its finest.
Unfortunately, this is what creators have to live with, because you're writing someone else's books and you're not like doing a self.
I think so long as he still has control over Thor, he's good. If he had lost control over both books,
I give him 6 months.
You mean with Venom?
I give him 6 months with Venom.
I'm not going to argue that.
But okay, first of all, this goes even. I'd say this goes as far back as Marvel now. They had developed a bad habit of trying to boost sales by baiting the readership. Now, in social media engagement, you can get away with that with the short term because at the end of the day, all attention is good attention from a business standpoint. You can get away with it in the short term. But if anything were to happen to the MCU, if anything were to happen to the larger big brand that has carried your comics division afloat for the latter half of a decade, gimmicks and outrage aren't going to save you.
Nope, they are not. And
all it's going to do, best case, alienate people. Worse, piss people off. And I'm trying my best to be PG-13 right now because. First of all, you already had the big screw you to Nick Spencer when he left to go indie. You already had that debacle. Then you had the Zeb Wells run and how god awful that was. And then you have the gall. You have the gall to bring back a character who is literally killed off, mortified for decades, was retconned into having basically, you know what I'm alluding to with Norman Osborn, so I'm just going to leave it at that.
Oh, you mean the Passins?
Yep, thankfully Spencer undid all that, thankfully.
Thank you.
Canon-wise, and now they're trying to bring her back and trying to revive Gwenpool. And I'm like, wasn't Gwenpool supposed to be an original character who then gets merged into the comics? It was just a glorified OC?
No. Oh, yeah, she's a glorified OC, yes, definitely.
Yeah, because they did like a series of variant covers, which was different, like Gwen-ized versions of Marvel characters. And the Gwenpool one blew up. So Marvel rightly decided, okay, maybe we can make this a character. So that's how that started. And I read a lot of the original series. It's actually pretty good. But the thing about that is like, no, they're marking this as the original Gwen Stacy, and literally the tagline of the event JJheat is "Nothing is sacred."
Yep.
Next, you're going to tell me they're going to have Uncle Ben as Carnage.
Thankfully, Eddie is Carnage currently.
Who knows?
Thankfully, Eddie is Carnage currently.
Wait, Eddie is Carnage now?
Eddie Brock is Carnage.
And Rick Jones is Sleeper.
We're literally in the
I'm glad I don't read the Venom book. I gotta be honest. I'm like, this all sounds stupid.
Marvel isn't my strongest point, so...
I'll be honest, like I said, Al Ewing, the only book I'm buying from his at Marvel is Immortal Hulk. No, it's all
that's a good book.
Immortal Thor. That's still a good book, though. That's still a very good book.
So I think let's move to our gaming topic. So they finally brought in Emma Frost into Marvel Rivals. I'm gonna get the design because she looks gorgeous.
She a dick.
Yes.
I'm sorry. I love saying that. She a dick.
Well, she is. So that kind of helps.
Yeah, it definitely does help.
All right, hang on.
Especially when you compare her to her Fortnite skin.
Yeah, exactly. But this is one of the reasons why Marvel Rivals is doing so well.
Dang!
This is one of the reasons why Marvel Rivals is doing so well because they're not hiding from the fact that they have very attractive characters.
Not at all.
Yeah, and I'm like, again, this is my biggest L of a prediction because I thought this game was just a stupid Overwatch clone when it first got announced. And then I was like, well, as soon as I played it, I was like, okay, I see why people like this. This is fun. I like it.
Me personally, I wouldn't have made Emma a Vanguard. Me personally.
What would you have made her?
Especially if you use her diamond form, I would have gone with something like Tang or something along those lines, or even more melee. I wouldn't have gone with Vanguard. Vanguard just kind of like seems like the safest option, especially if you're not going to use all of her abilities.
True.
And also, apparently, it's Ultron's also gonna be a playable character.
Oh, that was a given.
Yeah, but apparently he's gonna be a healer.
Ultron is a healer. Ultron should be a tank.
Well, here's the thing, though. Here's the thing. Ultron's ability to turn people into other Ultrons. You could kind of take that as healing.
I think it's more.
So we're using Star Trek logic now. Okay.
Here's what I think. I think it's going to be more of a Vision side of him.
That could be interesting. By the way, Teladia, what do you
Mm-hmm.
think of Our Lady here being added to Marvel Rivals?
So I did a reaction to it. I really liked her design
Mm-hmm.
and the gameplay. I saw a gameplay footage
Mm-hmm.
earlier today, and I was like thinking, you know what, she could be my second main. She's
Yeah,
a
for me-
Vanguard.
Get in line, brother. Get in line.
Wait. You didn't hear what I was going to say next. I was going to say, because she's a Vanguard character, it's the same area as Punisher. Punisher's a Vanguard too. So
I thought he was a DPS.
He should have been a DPS.
No, he is
Should've
a
been-
DPS because that's all he does is shoot. He ain't a
No,
tank.
no.
He goes down easy.
No, he's a Vanguard.
How is he a Vanguard?
He started out as a DPS, but in a model update they converted it into a Vanguard. I remember this.
Yeah, they updated it to a Vanguard.
So why
yeah.
he's a tank?
Yeah, he's a tank. Yeah, he's a tank now. He was DPS starting out.
Okay. I just know people keep on treating him as a DPS still.
Because they got used to playing him as a DPS, and they just didn't feel like making the switch.
Also, here's the thing. They're
Look-
making kind of a gamble by setting this on Krakoa.
That is a gamble, yes. But for the setting, let's be honest, Krakoa is perfect for new maps.
That is true. There is that you do make a good point there, even though I hate it. I also again like how all the characters are getting Hellfire Gala suits.
And that's also a perfect excuse for new outfits.
Yeah, so I'll give you that. I'll give you that.
Okay,
And-
that's all right. Those legs.
I'm sorry. I'm gonna say this. Hearing Emma Frost say to me, my X-Men is so dope. I love that.
Yep.
But I think we can all agree. I think we can all agree the Krakoa era was crap. I think we can all object.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Potential, yes. Lived up to it, no.
Now, do you think Blade is still going to be brought in? Because they've been teasing Blade for a
Eventually.
while.
Eventually, I think eventually they'll bring in Blade.
What do you
Still not
think?
getting a movie though.
JJheat, Teladia, what do you guys think?
By the way, they released a look at her alternate costume as well.
Yep. Oh, yeah. And from what I've heard, she's practically spilling out of it.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah.
Kind of is.
She is she is going to be the big Miss Fan Service. Like after, let's be honest, Sue was that strut of hers. Now we got.
I was gonna say I want a white costume from the comics.
We'll get it eventually.
Apparently, it is kind of leaked that Blade is going to be added.
Yep, and apparently he's going to be one that switch back and forth between melee and range.
Which that makes sense, but yeah, you know they were gonna add in Blade, but see that. But again, here's why a lot of gaming companies should take the Marvel Rivals route. You embrace the attractiveness of your characters, and you make everything except like, let's say in-game currency free. All your, I mean, paid for. All your characters are free. That works because then I don't have to worry about, okay, now I have to go buy it. Or like the cosmetics, I'm fine being paid because that doesn't affect gameplay. Characters straight up affect gameplay.
Yep.
But all, in terms of Marvel Rivals, yeah, I'm definitely be checking that out. And I perpetually call dibs on Emma Frost. Get in line, gentlemen. When we play that, I will be playing as either her, Captain America, Iron Man, Black Widow, and I'm trying to remember who else I really like. I play a mean Black Widow, by the way. So let's go to a Q&A session. So you guys can ask us anything about this week in news, whatever you guys would like to do. JJheat, what comics are you reading, my brother?
Right now, I'm reading the plethora. I'm reading the Absolute Trinities, Superman, Wonder Woman, and Batman. Those books are actually pretty good right now so far.
When you compare Absolute Wonder Woman to Tom King's Wonder Woman, that's not a high bar.
I mean, look.
That goes without saying.
That goes without saying.
I know. I had to. I like to insert one Tom King dig into every stream I do.
Be that as it may, at least say what you will about who's writing Absolute Wonder Woman right now.
Kelly
Kelly
Thompson.
Kelly Thompson. Okay, thank you. Say what you will about Kelly Thompson and how the whole Yara Floor thing with the Amazon murder mystery went down. Say what you will about that, but this shows that if she's not being screwed over by editorial, Kelly Thompson can at least write something decent.
Yeah. By the way, exactly. Cameron,
and I've heard her Birds of Prey is actually not that bad.
Yeah, by the way,
it falls off at by the time you get to the second volume, it does fall off, but it's decent for what it is.
Yep. By the way, Cameron, I don't know about MJ as Venom if they're going to lose by the end of the year. Lois, you could definitely tell Simon Williamson has a very good, short-term story in mind. Unfortunately, with MJ's Venom, I don't know. I
never know. I don't trust Marvel to actually execute the story well.
But would you agree with what I just said, Jared? Would you agree with that? Like Williamson, he's earned it. He's earned my face.
Yeah. See here, the problem with Williamson though is that he does struggle on endings.
Oh yeah, big time.
So that's my one concern. That's my one concern.
Yeah, but I'm saying that, but he has a plan at least.
At least he has a plan. Yes, I'll give him that.
Whereas the Venom stuff, I don't think they have a plan.
Now,
they don't have a plan, brother.
No.
This is Marvel we're talking about. They don't even know what the word plan means.
Mm-hmm.
Now, back to Williamson.
And also just to answer that quickly, how did Eddie become Carnage? Carnage symbiote jumped onto him.
Yeah. What do you want to say, JJheat?
But Williamson, okay. Dark Crisis was way too big of an assignment. Between 5G falling apart, all the editorial madness going on at the time, that was way too big of an assignment for Williamson. Let's just be objective about it.
Mm-hmm.
But be that as it may, his run saved Wally West.
Yep.
Yep. That Adams even more so.
Let's admit that. Jeremy Adams improved upon it.
No. Williamson didn't do anything with Wally. He always focused on Barry.
That's right. Wait, who took over Wally's mini? Oh,
that was Adams. That was Adams.
That was Jeremy Adams. My mistake.
But he did get the ball rolling by the end by revealing that it was Reverse Flash who whispered into Wally's ear.
And then that got retconned by Savitar breaking the dimensional barrier. And then
they got added further. But explain why he acted so off during it. And then Adams would then come in and retcon out that he exploded all that energy and gave Roy an awesome moment.
Yeah, but like I said, Williamson has done decent. Like for example, his Robin run with Damian Wayne. I feel like it was a glorified tribute to Chuck Dixon more than anything with his Tim Drake run back in the 90s.
With that. But here's the thing. The thing about Williamson is that, and this is why I kind of agree with Robert, Williamson, when he does stuff, it's for a purpose. Yes. I don't even know what the hell Marvel's doing, but with Williamson, I know he has a reason for doing the things he's doing. So that's why.
Look at Lex losing his mind. Look at his mind.
That's why. That's why I want 100%. That's why. Yes, I have all of the. Lois has superpowers issues in my box of BS, but still, I'm still reading it and giving it a shot because I'm like, I want to see how Williams executes this because so far I've been enjoying his Superman run, like totally enjoying it.
Especially the Lex stuff. He's one of the better people to handle Lex.
Yeah, exactly. Really, Dawn of DC and All In have been great for Superman.
I'm looking forward to Dan Slott. What does that say?
Wait, Dan Slott's coming to DC?
Yeah, he's writing his own Superman thing. By the way, so JJheat, he's going to put a Daily Planet like office in every city, including Themyscira. That's not a stupid idea. She walks away!
No, wait, JJheat, come back. To be fair.
He'll be back.
Yeah, because I got to point out, there is something that Dan Slott did at DC that was actually good. And you cannot deny it.
I love where he gets up and walks away. He'll be back. He'll be
Yeah,
back.
I'll tell him when he
He'll
gets
be
back
back.
because I do. Like I said, I was thinking JHeat will be able to argue with me
Oh, trust
once
me.
I tell him.
Trust me. Do not underestimate JHeat's ability to argue stuff.
But when I point out the characters that Slot created, he won't be able to argue.
We'll see. All right, JHeat, you can come back now.
JHeat?
He's gone. He's gone. He's
Watch.
gone. He's
Okay, he's
done.
back. He's back.
Okay, JHeat. Okay, JHeat.
Wait. Let him put the headphones back. Oh, you can hear us? All right, go ahead, Robert.
Okay. Here's something you got to remember that Slot had done. He did a great miniseries called Arkham Asylum Living Hell. And you know who was introduced in that? You were introduced to Jane Doe, the woman whose thing is she wears other people's skin or fake skin over them. So you had the Great White Shark, but you also had Aaron Cash from the Arkham games. Slot gave us Aaron Cash and became one of his prominent characters since. You got to admit, Slot did some good there. But he actually had good editorial keeping him reined in.
Since when has DC had good editorial? Granted, they're not as bad as Marvel. But still.
Well, yeah. And then you realize that Brittany works at DC, and
But she's not doing the Superman books.
But she's not even doing the Wonder Woman books.
Okay, but you know what I mean.
Yeah,
I thought having Voldemort from Azkaban on Superman was bad.
Hey, but here's the other thing.
That's a new one. Wait, that's a new one. Voldemort from Azkaban. Oh, I'm gonna use that, brother.
But here's the other thing, JHeat. Slot did do good work before he got on Spider-Man. His Spider-Man, Human Torch, his She-Hulk, his Great Lake Avengers.
Spider-Man is also not that bad.
Yeah. Well,
He peaked at the turn of the century, Robert. Even you have to admit that. By 2000, he peaked.
The book,
yes.
The only book that I think objectively failed from him was Iron Man 2020.
Oh,
yeah.
God, that run was bad.
Yeah, but Infamous Iron Man. No, that was. I didn't say finish the name. I didn't.
Yes, you did. You said the B word. You said the B word. I'm rolling the clip. I'm rolling. That counts.
Why did you say that name?
That counts, Robert.
Okay, but yeah, so I didn't do that one. My mistake.
That counts.
I will say this though. That is Fantastic Four. He finally got to do that Ragnarok war that he had been building up to for so long.
He did.
Yep, and it was a good event.
It was decent. I ain't got to take that away from the man.
Yeah. So again, the man can do more good than bad.
But anyway, so Teladia, I wanted to ask you. So, what do you think about WB Games' prospects? Because it's not looking good for a lot of their stuff because they keep canceling shit. But what do you think?
Well, after speaking to a couple of people, I'll be honest with you, I am looking forward to the next Batman game.
All right, there you go.
And to be honest with you, I can understand why they kind of would cancel the definitive edition of Hogwarts Legacy, even though it got them $1 billion, for a game. The way WB is right now is that they need to start again. Basically, they need to. How do I explain this? To start again.
Yep.
Reboot essentially.
Yeah, restart.
Here's basically what I would say. May I make a suggestion? Say a quick thing. I think because they also realize a definitive edition, you're not going to get as much back as you did the first time around.
Yeah, agreed.
I think that's the big thing they probably realized it. We're not going to be able to make us back as much money. We're putting more money in than we're going to get back. Drop it.
Yeah, and they're like, we're already working on a sequel. Why would we continue working on the definitive?
Incorporate some elements. They're going to probably incorporate some of the elements into the sequel.
Yeah, absolutely. But yeah, I get what they're going for. But honestly, I feel like I'm gonna be watching that Batman game real close because that is gonna be the because if that's good, that redeems Rocksteady 100%.
That will redeem Rocksteady, but on top of that, that potentially could launch WB and DC in particular start pushing out the main IPs like Superman, Wonder Woman, Flash.
It could. It could
Justice
if it's
League.
good. Would you want to say, Robert?
Hold on here. Question.
Yeah.
What from anything you've heard, is there
Yeah.
any truth to them ending working on MK1, or is that still being worked on? Because I've heard from what I've seen, they got a lot of sales during December, and it's making you wonder, like, are they really dropping it, or was that done to weed out leakers?
The thing is, with MK1, it's kind of already been in a 2-year cycle now.
Mm-hmm.
It's coming up to a 2-year cycle, so they haven't got any of the DLC. I don't think there'll be any of the DLC for that game, to be honest with you.
All right,
This
so you don't
case
think they're not think they're going to do one more combat pack?
Best
No,
case
because-
scenario, go ahead.
I don't think so, because the reason is, yes, what they might do is to just do skins, but they've got nothing else for that.
There's some characters they kept promising. A lot of those characters that were in the final mission chapter.
Consolidate them
problem-
into a season pass.
But the problem is with MK, it's a monetization thing. It's it's a microtransaction thing, and it's a live service game basically. It's not a
Let him cook, Robert. Let him cook.
it's live service in terms of like DLC DLC combat pack, skins, coins. That's all microtransactions.
Yes.
That's live service. That counts as live service. So
doesn't live service count where you needed to finish the game? Like
It's
to
all
actually beat the story mode.
are active, yes.
Yeah, you need to actually. You can't beat. You needed to beat the story mode and everything.
Well, technically, you already finished like the story. The story mode's already finished.
Yeah.
Right? They did the extension pack. But what I'm trying to get at is them not doing another pack. They're probably doing Injustice next, given the fact that WB needs another DC fighting game right now.
Yeah,
they really do. They do need something to come out and, you know, top the charts with whatever WB or DC has, right? They need something to kind of tie everything over till Rocksteady is ready to release their next game. Because if look at it like this, if Rocksteady's game isn't ready by 2028 or 2029, because that's roughly the time period that we're looking at for the next Batman game, you're not
going 3 to 4 years. Yes.
Yeah.
It's you're not gonna get anything between now to
Injustice 3 is probably something they're probably already working on anyway. They're probably able to crank that out pretty quick.
Exactly. So
look at the time between MK11 and MK1. It was like what, 3 years?
2.5.
Exactly. 2.5 years, and that was out just like that. So it'll be the same thing with Injustice. It'll be out within 2.5 years. But JJheat, if you want to go next, you can.
Oh, thank you. But yeah, it's just if you're gonna do Injustice 3 and this late in the game, especially if you factor Kevin Conroy's tragic passing, you have to do the Brainiac Superman ending, because at least based off the He-Man or Masters of Universe crossover, Batman had a very limited role. He was mind controlled for most of it. Damian ended up taking the helm until his plot device induced unaliving, which led to Bruce snapping out of it. And then you can use Bruce Greenwood to do the voiceover.
I think they probably would sooner use Roger Craig Smith, because they already used him in the Arkham stuff.
Maybe
Arkham Shadows, they used him in it, so
maybe
he works for a younger Batman. Maybe Bruce Wayne.
No, but JJheat has to think. Roger Craig Smith has played an older Batman.
Batman Ninja.
Batman Ninja. That's a prime example.
And he sounded pretty close there too.
Yes, so
he could pull it off, but Greenwood would be a safer bet. But he could pull it off.
I don't think they're planning using Greenwood anytime soon.
But only time will tell what the case is with Injustice 3. Like I've said this many a times. It's like it depends on where WB Games is right now, structure-wise, what the plan is going forward for their DC gaming brand. Because right now they're a mess. Right now they haven't got a straightforward plan to say, okay, we've got this game and this game and this game coming out, right? They haven't got that. what they've got is one game they're holding hope on, which is a Batman game. We don't know anything about NetherRealm's next game because they said they worked on 2 games, but we don't know anything about the second game. But what I'm trying to get at is that there's no plan, there's no initial plan to say, okay, we've got 2 AAA single player games. WB Montreal is not working on a DC game now; they're working on a Game of Thrones game. And no, Daniel, they're not throwing money at the wall. So don't think you know everything. You don't, because please don't say that. Because here's the thing: I know a lot about the gaming industry compared to you.
And Daniel, they can't just remake Justice League Heroes because the studio that started it shut down.
Yeah, exactly.
It's not as simple as you think it is.
Yeah, it's never that simple. It's never that simple.
Asset distribution is a nightmare, especially on older projects.
And again, Daniel, we've said this before. The Wonder Woman game was not on WB. It was not on WB's fault. It was not DC's fault. It was the developer's fault.
Exactly. So
that's an absolute fact, by the way. I'm pretty sure DC Warner Brothers, if they wanted to, they would have, but there was too much money being put into it. It was floundering. It was sinking.
And the studio had the
WB
games. The WB Games had already experienced like multiple back-to-back failures, one spectacularly in the way of Suicide Squad.
Yeah, but Monolith though was already, the moment they had to restart from scratch, they were doomed.
Yeah,
let's be honest.
That's when I was really concerned. And again, Teladia, who was calling that the game is probably going to be canceled?
You did say that. You did say that
many times, particularly after they restarted development. Because I'm like, this close. I'm like, no, we haven't heard anything, and they restart. This is not looking good. What do you want to say, Teladia?
I was going to say there's 3 things I want to say. Firstly, the Wonder Woman game thing was also the fact that the developers left the studio as soon as they switched up to the Wonder Woman game. That's the first thing.
Second thing is, it was beforehand. It was right beforehand.
You know what I was going to say.
Sorry. I correct things like that. I'm sorry.
Yeah, but you know what I'm trying to get at, though. Anyway, anyway, the second thing is, Daniel, is that the licensing out IPs is a big hassle these days. It's not a simple thing to do. They have to go through certain people to get in order to license out their IP. It's
especially
not like
Wonder Woman,
especially Wonder Woman, especially Super.
For the contract,
for the contract and stuff like that. They have to sign these things. For example, the what's the word? Multiverses game. That was only a year, a year of content, and that was it. It was done.
And that guy and the guy behind it was an idiot.
Exactly. So all I'm saying is the way
look how quick it went to Fortnite. Look how quick things jumped to Fortnite after they dropped Multiverses. It was like they had it ready to go. Because
they know that it's a moneymaker. They know that anything that goes to Fortnite, license IP to Fortnite, it'll be like that easy because it's the easy money thing to do. But if it's like, if you're making it if you're the publisher, WB Games, you're publishing the game and you're licensing out to other studios, it's a different thing. Justice League Heroes is a big problem there because the studio doesn't exist anymore. They can't really go back into it and say, oh, we'll remake it. And
they have to start from scratch. They have to utterly start from scratch. It would have to be a new game anyway. Now, spiritual successor, yes, but that's still a whole new game.
Yeah, it has to be a whole new game. So the way I see it is that if they want to do a spiritual successor, it has to be done after the Batman Arkham game, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
It has to be done after the Batman Arkham game because there's no way you could do a
Justice League game
at the moment.
We agree on one thing, though. I'm positive Zaslav has completely dropped the live service model. I think that blew up in his face so spectacularly that he has egg on his face after saying we're going to triple down on that.
No, he's dropped that completely.
It's not sustainable in terms of current market.
Not.
No, it's not only not sustainable, but it's also the fact that
it's dying.
It was dying from 2017 onwards.
Yeah, but people
and you shouldn't have jumped on that, particularly after you had a live service utter disaster in Suicide Squad.
Well, that's what we're talking about. What's what led up to Suicide Squad?
Mm-hmm.
What also was also another failure was Gotham Knights.
Yeah.
They took out the live service elements from that game.
But
and
it's
made
so
it
apparently, it's so obvious. It's so obvious.
Mm-hmm.
so. But I'll leave it at this, and because I know I've talked way too much.
No, we like
No,
that. Yeah.
it's all good.
No,
We want
you're
to
good.
get you
You're
involved.
good.
You're the gaming guy. This is your thing.
I'm the comic guy. You're the gaming guy. JJheat
We'll
is
start
the
from scratch. Again, Daniel, that balloons the game's budget. It's not as simple as you think it is.
Whoa. And then
And-
that, though, WB was not at fault for hiring them. They pitched the idea. Not
Mhm.
WB did not say, give us a Wonder Woman game. They said, hey, we got a Wonder Woman game idea. How does this sound? They came up with the trailer and then started production. That
The
trailer,
fact,
well, yeah.
And
fact
then
was-
Daniel,
Sorry.
if they were to restart, if they were to actually restart it and do that, the game's budget balloons to the point they would be impossible for them to make a profit on the game.
Exactly. And they were
Exactly.
already restarting anyway. That's why they canceled it, because this was not going to be worth the money.
If they
I-
didn't restart it,
No.
if they didn't restart, I think the game would still be in development.
Now, I will say, I think he's saying about start from scratch with Heroes. Again, you're not going to start from scratch from that if you're going to do a remake.
The Heroes, you said remake it, and the Heroes IP, that whole thing is still with that one. It's still tied up. You can't just make that.
And the
Yeah.
ownership. What you have to pay a huge licensing fee or buy out the IP outright.
You know what it's similar to? It's similar to Mario RPG.
Mhm.
Well, wait, they did not encourage Monolith. They didn't.
wait,
They didn't. No,
Can I-
Daniel.
can I say something?
Wait.
Please.
Let me start first, Daniel.
Yeah.
We have brought up many times WB screw ups. We're not forgiving them. We're just saying in this case, you can't blame WB.
You can't. It was all Monolith. They were not encouraged. They were not encouraged.
So I want to say this. I want to say
Yeah,
this.
go ahead, Robert. Go ahead,
Please.
Claudia.
Monolith had 2 other pitches before going into this Wonder Woman game. Then WB said, no, you can't make these games because they're not DC owned, right? They're not going to make money, right? So they had to say, that's why Monolith said, oh, we'll make a Wonder Woman game. They had to think of it on the fly because otherwise they wouldn't have any other game, right? So you can't blame WB Games for this problem. This was Monolith's problem from the get-go because they haven't made a game since 2018, 2017, and they were sitting on their hands expecting one game to basically win.
And they
everyone
chose
over.
not to do more with Middle Earth. They chose that. They could
Yeah.
have done more, but they chose
Mhm.
not to.
Exactly.
Yeah, exactly.
Middle Earth
It was
was
a
kind of a
Mimo.
half-ass job. Not
Mhm.
gonna
Yeah.
lie.
But yeah, so again, we are not forgiving WB and Discovery. We're not at all. All we're saying is you can't just assume.
Best case scenario, I'll play devil's advocate with you, Daniel. Best case scenario, best case, they either license the original pitch or their assets to it, either to Montreal or Rocksteady if they agree to it. That is a literal best case scenario.
Problem is, here's the kicker for you, JJheat. WB Montreal is not going to do another DC game because
Exactly. And Rocksteady was still busy with Suicide Squad at the time.
Yep, and here's something else I was trying to say earlier with the IP. Mario RPG. Compare that to the other Mario, like Mario and Luigi or Mario Paper Mario, because they don't own the RPG rights. Square does.
So
But Cameron brings up an interesting point. Would it have been a good idea to give the Wonder Woman game to Rocksteady? Because
No.
let's be honest, that's
No, God, no.
Explain
No.
Please,
why that's a
no.
bad idea.
I would do the
You-
meme, but I ain't doing
So
it.
I'll say the reason why it's not a good idea to give it to Rocksteady because Rocksteady were juggling plates at the very moment, because they were like juggling a Suicide Squad game, trying to do things with it. First, there was a single player game, then the developmental problems inside the studio. So for them to do a Wonder Woman game like that, it'd be too much for them. So don't think that giving Rocksteady the Wonder Woman game would have saved the game. It wouldn't have.
No, it would not. It would not.
It wouldn't have. I hate to
Plus,
say that.
you wouldn't necessarily maybe be able to use the Nemesis system at all either.
No.
None.
No, you would have to have Monolith. Even
Yeah,
then,
you need Monolith too, because here's the other thing you gotta remember. You gotta remember this, Daniel. Most of the people who worked on Nemesis had left before they even started Wonder Woman. And so you have people having to learn it.
exactly.
Yeah.
That was one of their biggest problems. Now, I will say this. WB were partially at fault for the Exodus. Partially at fault. Can we agree to that?
Yeah.
Yes,
They were partially at fault for the Exodus that led to them doing the Wonder. So in that regard, yes, you could partially blame WB on that, but that was still also Monolith's people's main fault too, though. They
directly pitched the idea.
Yeah, and it's Monolith's fault that they all they got made in the 3 years that game was in development was that trailer
and some concept artwork for it, and that was the second go around.
And some concept art. That's all you got done. Are you kidding me? That's not on WB. That's on Monolith.
Yeah, Monolith, and getting Gail Simone involved, which was a smart idea.
Yeah, that was a great idea.
It's pretty much like how Gotham Knights had Scott Snyder involved.
Yeah, pretty much.
Pretty much. So it was
for Court of Owls,
that for Court of Owls, yeah. So it was similar thing to that. But all I'm gonna say, guys, when it comes down to DC gaming now, mainly they're gonna be focusing on Batman. They're not gonna do Superman. They're not gonna do Flash until the Batman game comes out. It makes money. No, Daniel.
What the heck?
No, Daniel.
What Wonder Woman game is he talking about?
Apparently, he made a Wonder Woman fan-made game.
Well, he's gonna get cease and desist. He's
gonna hold on. Programming development does take time, and Monolith barely did squat with the 3 years they were given with the original commission. So I will give him kudos there.
All right, fair enough.
That's fair. That's fair.
But what I'm saying is that anything DC gaming now will be focusing on Batman, and mainly focusing on that for the time being, until maybe end the PlayStation 5 cycle, Xbox Series X cycle, and then focus on PlayStation 6. That's what the main focus will point to.
Safest bet. Just ride the cycle on out with Batman titles. Safest bet. Yeah,
safest bet. But now we don't even know what the price point was going to be because the price tariff and all of that's going to be a different thing too. A lot of people are going to complain, and I can tell you right now that will be the focal. That'll be the talk of the show, Jared. I'm going to tell you that right now. The talk of the show will be when the Batman game comes out. The price point that will be the topic the next time when that comes out. You'll be like, and if they release a price point, and it's like $80 to $100.
I'm not getting it then. I'll wait until it's on sale.
I'll give you an example. Gotham Knights was $65 to $70 on release, and that game was hot garbage. Just imagine.
It wasn't that bad, JJheat. I'm going to push back on that.
I played the game, man. It is mid, and the story.
I played it many times. It's not garbage. It's mid, but it's not garbage.
Can I say what my biggest problem was with Gotham Knights was? Two things. One, the world is too huge, and your traversal is too slow.
And there's not enough in the city.
Yep. And two, the repetitiveness where this was meant to be a live service. The constant rehashing of missions where they just reload in their exact same missions.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'll give you that.
And then they had a tie where like, you got to do it with these specific factions. And yet the factions, they operate no different, just different skins.
Yeah, exactly.
And the replay value, you could binge the entire. Now, granted, during my playthrough, I never finished the original story, but I'll openly admit that. But if you actually go through research or a playthrough, you could binge through the story mode in roughly 5 to 7 hours of gameplay.
Yeah,
it would take you a full afternoon to get you through the story mode.
For the most part, yes.
Maybe overnight, depending on how long you time it, but still.
That's true. I have the game guide, so I just use that.
Yeah, you've got you got the game guy. You've got me.
I always I always buy the game guides when they're available. But anyway, so I think that's a good place to leave it. But anyway, so JJheat, where can we find you and what have you got coming on your channel?
All right, ladies and gentlemen. First of all, you can find me at JJheat or JJheat Plays, where I usually do playthroughs of Dragon Age, Mass Effect Andromeda. Actually, I have a new episode of Mass Effect Andromeda coming out tomorrow morning. But and also for New Direction Verse, Jared and I will be collabing for Heroes in Crisis. You're welcome. And yes, like, comment, subscribe. Please feel free to stick around. Thanks for watching.
Teladia, how about you?
You guys can check me out on YouTube at Teladia Plays. What I got coming up is I will be doing some more reactions to the Superman stuff, and I'll do some Marvel Rival content, and also Snyder Fans Read Comics returns next Wednesday, and I'll be talking about issue 5 for both Batman and Superman for Absolute Books, and then I'll be having a guest on my channel for Into the Multiverse, a DC Comics podcast. So stay tuned for that.
How about you, Robert?
You got my stuff down below. You guys can check me out there. I got Pro Teachers Duped. Jared and I are going to soon be going over Trinity, but not that one. Not that one. So yeah, we're going to be going over the good one.
As for me, so obviously this week on Super Wonder Legacy, Britt and I are going to talk about our favorite Wonder Woman stories and runs. And then for Wonder Woman Wednesday, I'm brainstorming topics. And then for Under Two Capes, I'm going to be joined by comic book editor Aaron Sparrow to talk about comics and rant about Tom King and stuff. So we'll be on the lookout for that. Anyway, folks, stay heroic. Remember, Lois Lane is Lois Lane. She belongs to General Zod, Zois, and Maximat for life. And Robert, you know I wouldn't do it if you didn't make it so much more fun.
You would do it regardless, dude.
Yes, I would. Stay heroic, everyone. Bye-bye.